We are prepared to go forward with the court's initiated resentencing proceedings and look forward to a resentencing hearing on that motion. The essence of the defense that the Menendezes have maintained from the first trial into the second trial to the present day is that they acted in self-defense. At trial, Erik testified, and he was asked, "Did you kill your father because he sexually molested you?" Answer, no. "Did you kill your parents because you hated them?" Certainly no, was the answer. "Did you kill your parents because you wanted their money?" Answer, no. "Did you kill your parents as an act of mercy?" Answer, no. "Why, Mr. Menendez, did you kill your mother and your father?" "Because we were afraid." "What is it you were afraid of?" "I was afraid of dying." "Who were you afraid was going to kill you?" "My mom and my dad." Self-defense was the last iteration and version of their defenses. Because remember, the first defense that they came out with was, "We didn't do it. That's not us." If you remember the 911 call, if you remember Erik Menendez screaming and crying when the police came out that night, he says to the police, "We're going to kill them," referring to the people who had just murdered his parents. "We're going to kill them. We're going to torture them." Who would have done this thing? The answer is the Menendezes. But their first iteration was it wasn't them. It was either the mafia or the cartel or the dirty business associates of Jose Menendez. They persisted in this lie not just the night of August 20th, but kept that lie going for months and months and months. And had Erik not confessed to his therapist, Dr. Oziel, months later, and that confession been taped, and that confession's tape been turned over to the police, they would have maintained it wasn't us. The next iteration of the story was when Lyle Menendez gets his girlfriend, Jamie Pisarek, to visit him at prison and says, "I want you to testify that my father drugged you and violently raped you," establishing that Jose Menendez was a violent rapist. Jamie Pisarek refused to do that. So the next iteration of the story was that Lyle Menendez asked Jamie Pisarek and said to her, "Well, Erik Menendez was raped by my father, but I was raped by my mother." That's a story that was then repeated to Erik and Lyle Menendez's uncle, Carlos Baralt, that Erik Menendez was molested by the father, but Lyle Menendez was molested by the mother. That iteration didn't go forward. The next iteration that ultimately came out at trial, and just before trial, was that both boys were molested by the father. But as you heard a moment ago, that wasn't a defense to the charges of first-degree murder with special circumstances. Because you had to add one more thing that the jury was now going to consider, is not just that they were sexually abused, but they were actually in actual fear of imminent harm, of their lives being taken by their parents the night of August 20th, 1989. So self-defense is the defense that they set forward at the trial. Days before the murders on August 20th, on August 18th, the Menendezes drove 120 miles to San Diego to purchase shotguns and ammunition and used a fake ID and a fake San Diego address to make sure that the guns and the ammunition would not be connected to them. The day before the killings, August 19th, they go to a firing range and they find out that the birdshot ammunition that they had bought isn't good enough to kill someone. They're told you need buckshot ammunition in order to actually kill someone, and they buy it that day. Lyle Menendez contacts one of his friends, Perry Berman, to set up the alibi. And the alibi was that they were going to go to Batman the movie at the 8 o'clock showing. And they would be at that movie when the killings would have occurred, and then meet Perry Berman at the Taste of LA event afterwards. They set this up before the killings. Now, during these killings, as we've explained before, these weren't just a situation where all of a sudden that the parents threatened their lives, they reached for something and shot him dead. No. These killings, the actual shots, were designed to make it look like a mafia gangland hit. They shot Jose Menendez through the back of his head. They shot Kitty Menendez not only once, which then caused her to go down to the ground, bleeding, but when they ran out of ammunition, they went back to the car, reloaded the shotgun. Then Lyle Menendez took the shotgun, put it up to Kitty Menendez's face, and pulled the trigger. Again, to make it look like a gangland shooting, but that was not enough. They then, while they were dead, shot them in the kneecaps to make it, to complete the picture of what a gangland shooting would be. They then called Perry Berman to establish the alibi and went to the movie theater to buy the tickets, only to find out they couldn't buy the 8 o'clock showing because the next showing had already occurred. And Perry Berman had already moved on to a different event, so they couldn't meet up with him. If these were kids that had just lost their parents, you would think the last thing in their mind would be to check on where the will is. But sure enough, within 48 hours, they go ahead and obtain the computer that they believed a new will had been written on, disinheriting them, bring in a computer expert to delete and then double delete all the files dealing with Erik, Lyle, or Will that are on the computer. Go ahead and remove the safe from the family home into a neighbor's home to look at the safe only to determine there was no will in that. And then even go to the bank safe deposit box to go ahead and see if Jose Menendez had put the new will there, disinheriting his sons as he told them he was going to do. Erik and Lyle Menendez, at least from the beginning, fully expected for them never to go to prison because they had successfully convinced everyone that they didn't do it. Until they spoke to Dr. Oziel. And Erik, feeling the pangs of guilt, feeling even suicidal, talked to Dr. Oziel and basically told Dr. Oziel that they had done it. When asked about why they killed their father, they didn't mention self-defense. What they said about the father, what Erik said, is that he was a controlling, dominating force, and that is the reason that he was killed. When he was asked about the mother, he said the mother would be a witness to the crime, so she had to die. That the mother was so miserable because the father had had an affair that we needed to put her out of her misery. I'm hoping that they continue with this evolution of themselves, their improvement of themselves, to finally come to grips with the acknowledgement of the totality of their crimes and their lies. And at that point, the court may very well entertain the idea that they have met all the criteria to not only be rehabilitated, not only no longer pose a danger to society, but to be resentenced.